On Tuesday night, President Donald Trump used the State of the Union address to convince Americans of the health of the nation, boasting about the economy and the work done by Republicans ahead of the 2026 midterm elections. Our 21 News at 5 political analyst, University of Akron political science professor, Dr. Dave Cohen, can help with some context. Dr. Cohen, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So before we jump into some of the topics discussed last night, talk about the importance of the president's message heading into midterms, especially with many congressional seats opening up.
Well, I mean, this was a pretty big opportunity for him to kind of change the trajectory of his presidency, which is a very, it's on a downward spiral. I mean, if you look at polling right now, he is in the high 30s, which no president starting the second year of their presidency should ever be in. I mean, that's really dangerous territory for the midterm election that's coming up in November. And so this was really his opportunity to kind of turn that around and give the nation a kind of a unifying message and a clear direction of where he wants to take the country. And we did not get any of that last night.
You mentioned polling. An AP NORC poll shows 39% of U.S. adults approve of Trump's handling of the economy. President Trump spent much of the first hour boasting about that. Did his comments encourage more belief in the U.S. economy?
No, I mean, it's a total disconnect. He was saying that, first of all, he said last week, that he quote unquote won affordability, and not sure anybody knows what that really means. He tried to say in his speech last night that, in fact, he said, quote, there is no inflation. And that we have tremendous growth. And that is just simply not true. I mean, the data doesn't lie. We still have inflation. It's about at the same level as it was in 2024. We do not have tremendous growth. People feel that. The perception of the economy by the American people is that it is not doing well. That is kryptonite for this president going into the midterm election.
A national political analyst made a comment on a morning news program that last night's speech did not leave much for Republicans running in the midterms, like Ohio's John Husted. Would you agree?
Yes. He laid out, he did not lay out any kind of positive roadmap for where the country or for where his party should go. The only policy prescription that he said is that Congress should pass the Save America Act, which is really an unneeded law having to do with voter fraud. And so he really did not give his party much to run on. And he hit some of the favorite hits like immigration. But if you look at polling, even immigration, he is underwater. On that issue, which used to be a strong issue for him, and now it is a weak issue, just like every other policy issue that is polled.
Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger delivered the official Democratic Party rebuttal to the State of the Union. What parts of her speech stood out as marks for how Democrats will be platforming themselves in the 2026 midterms and the 2028 general election?
Well, I think, the playbook is pretty clear for Democrats. It is obviously criticism of the incumbent, criticism of his handling of just about every part of the country, but particularly the economy. People are very concerned about the economy. And in poll after poll, it is the top issue that people are concerned about. And so affordability, even though President Trump doesn't think it's an issue, affordability is going to be at the top. And it's going to be something that Democrats are going to be talking about, besides all the other things that you can talk about, ranging from foreign policy to the Epstein files.
Do you feel, though, that Democrats who didn't attend gained anything? There's criticism aimed at not honoring the process or the president.
Honestly, I don't think it mattered. I don't think it mattered if they attended or if they didn't attend. The focus was on the president. It's the president's State of the Union. And, really, that's where the focus should be. It's the one time a year that the president really has an opportunity to say not only where the country has been under their tenure, but where the country should go. And it's something that every president has had the ability to do, especially starting in the early 20th century when presidents started to make this more of a public affair and bring the American public into it. This president did not take advantage of that opportunity last night.
The president did clash with Democrats during the night, but he managed a moment of bipartisan unity with a 2-minute standing ovation for the U.S. men's hockey team. While things can get tense on both sides of the aisle, is there some strategy to trying to unite parties, even if it's for only a moment?
Yeah, I mean, it was just it was just a feel-good moment in otherwise 2 hours of not many feel-good moments, and no member of Congress is not going to stand for the gold-winning U.S. Olympic hockey team. But you will note that the women's hockey team wasn't there because of some comments that he made to the men's hockey team, after their victory. So even though it was a nice moment, it could have been actually a much nicer moment had he, essentially not made that gaffe.
Well, there was a lot to unpack from last night's speech. Dr. Cohen, we appreciate you giving us some context.
Thank you.